You can see this federal vehicle, this government vehicle, attempting to get into this facility without, and now they've just popped a tire.
Yeah, give it to me. No, but I can take it.
America, Chicago just descended into absolute chaos, and it perfectly shows you what happens when weak Democratic leadership meets federal immigration enforcement. Protesters outside of an ICE facility in Broadview literally assaulted federal agents, grabbing masks off their faces and getting into physical altercations, while Mayor Brandon Johnson called law enforcement a sickness. One woman was thrown to the ground and arrested after putting her hands on a federal officer, while ICE agents had to deploy pepper balls to control the mob. But here's the kicker. Johnson just signed an executive order directing Chicago police to protect these same protesters who are attacking federal agents.
Around 4:15 local time this afternoon, ICE agents were on the roof when a woman approached the fence along with a few other protesters and started yelling at them. Agents shot those demonstrators with pepper balls. Federal agents then came out of the parking lot where the woman got into a scuffle with them.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This is exactly what happens when you have a mayor who's more concerned about protecting illegal immigrants than supporting federal agents trying to enforce immigration law. Let me break down what happened at this ICE processing facility in Broadview. Protesters had been gathering since early morning, and around 4:15 p.m., things got escalated dramatically when a woman approached the fence and started screaming at ICE agents positioned on the roof. When federal agents came out to maintain order, this woman got in a physical altercation with them. She was thrown to the ground, and as agents were moving protesters back across the street, she reached up and grabbed the mask off of one ICE officer's face.
She was thrown onto the ground, and as agents crossed the street, moving protesters further away, that woman reached up and grabbed the mask of one of the ICE agents. That's when another one put her in a headlock, and you can see on video there that she flashes a peace sign.
Think about this for a second. She assaulted a federal officer by grabbing his mask, got put in a headlock, and then had the audacity to flash the peace sign like she was some kind of hero. This isn't a peaceful protest. This is criminal behavior that should result in federal charges, plain and simple. The situation got so out of control that ICE agents had to deploy pepper balls from both the roof and a ground level to disperse the increasing aggressive crowd. An ambulance was called because this woman likely got injured during her arrest. But this is not an isolated incident. Throughout the day, protesters were deliberately blocking ICE vehicles from entering and leaving the facility. When agents tried to move a van out of the parking lot, demonstrators who were on federal property refused to freaking move. The protesters were getting right up in federal agents' faces, yelling what reporters described as really, really intense. You could say hateful things while the agents tried to do their job. Come on, we've seen this before. These weren't peaceful demonstrators exercising their First Amendment rights. These were aggregators looking for confrontation.
But I kid you not, Tanya and Terrell, these demonstrators are getting this close to these federal agents.
At one point, federal agents had to physically shove protesters who were getting too aggressive. The agents kept warning, don't touch me, don't touch me. But guess what? These protesters were determined to create confrontation. Now, here's where this story gets really infuriating. While federal agents are being assaulted trying to enforce immigration law, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has been on a crusade against law enforcement, literally calling it a sickness.
Jails and incarceration and law enforcement is a sickness that has not led to safe communities.
The law enforcement is a sickness comment took off in some conservative and pro-police circles on social media.
Let that sink in. The mayor of one of America's most violent cities just called law enforcement a sickness. This is the same mayor whose city has seen skyrocketing crime rates, and he's attacking the very people trying to keep these communities safe. Cook County State Attorney O'Neill Burke was rightfully outraged by Johnson's comments, saying she was deeply offended and pointed out her office has 1,300 dedicated police servants working every day to protect women from domestic violence, prosecute child blank trafficking cases, and handling murder prosecutions.
I have 1,300 people who work in this office who are dedicated public servants, who get up every single day.
But we know Mayor Mohawk Brandon Johnson didn't stop there. In response to the federal immigration enforcement, he signed the Right to Protest executive order directing Chicago police to protect protesters, even when they're interfering with federal operations. This is the same mayor who called law enforcement a sickness. Now he's telling police officers to protect the very people who are assaulting federal agents. The hypocrisy here, guys, is absolutely staggering. Johnson claims he's protecting First Amendment rights, but what he's really doing is creating a sanctuary environment for people who want to obstruct federal law enforcement. When protesters are grabbing masks off of federal agents and blocking government vehicles, that is not protecting speech. That is criminal interference. The mayor is essentially telling his police force to choose between supporting federal law enforcement and following political agenda. This creates an impossible situation for Chicago police officers who took an oath to uphold all laws, not just the ones that their mayor likes. What we're seeing in Chicago is a perfect example of how Democratic leadership prioritizes illegal immigration over law-abiding citizens and federal agents trying to protect them. Johnson would rather protect protesters who assault federal officers than support the enforcement of immigration law.
Protesters still out demonstrating against the federal immigration crackdown happening right here in the Chicago area.
That's a look from the ground. Let's take a live look now from CBS Skywatch, giving us an overhead view of what this protest looks like now.
The protesters were using riot control tactics, blocking vehicles, getting in agents' faces, and physically interfering with federal operations. When ICE had to deploy tear gas and pepper balls, it shows you how out of control these quote-unquote peaceful protesters have become. Some of these protesters were even wearing gas masks and N95 masks, showing they came prepared for confrontation. This wasn't spontaneous civil disobedience. This was organized resistance to federal law enforcement.
But I can take it. Oh, I gotta get lower.
America, what happened in Chicago perfectly illustrates the choice we face as a country. Do we support law enforcement officers trying to enforce our immigration law, or do we side with the mayor who called law enforcement a sickness while protecting protesters who assault federal agents? When a woman grabs a mask off a federal officer, that's not a peaceful protest. That's an assault on a federal agent, which should result in serious federal charges. When protesters block government vehicles and interfere with federal operations, that is obstruction of justice. Mayor Brandon Mohawk Johnson has made his choice clear. He'd rather protect illegal immigrants and the protesters defending them than support federal agents trying to enforce our laws. He's created a sanctuary city, not just for illegal immigrants, but for people who want to assault federal officers. The message this sends to criminals and illegal immigrants is absolutely dangerous. Come to Chicago because the mayor will protect you from federal law enforcement. He'll even direct his police to shield you from the consequences of assaulting a federal agent. This is exactly why we need strong federal leadership that won't be intimidated by weak Democratic mayors who prioritize politics over public safety. When local officials refuse to cooperate with immigration enforcement, federal agents have to do the job themselves, even if it means facing assault from protesters protected by anti-law enforcement mayors. The message to Mayor Johnson is simple. Law enforcement is not a sickness. Your leadership is. And my message to the protesters is this: when you put your hands on federal agents, you're going to face federal consequences, regardless of what your mayor says. Let me know what you guys think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.